Hey, happy Friday. Welcome back to another Friday Tech Workshop. I'm Joseph, a senior developer advocate with Appsmith, and in today's workshop, we're going to build a data-driven PDF generator. This is going to let you take your API or your database query, select a row of data, and merge that in with a template, like a mail merge. So you can have a existing template and that row of data, merge them together, and then send that to an API, save it back to the database. You might attach it to an email, or maybe the end user just wants to download the PDF after it's been created. So there's lots of ways to approach this. There's several different JS libraries that would work and different use cases. It depends on what you're trying to do. So not every approach is right for every use case. And before we get into the details, I just want to kind of set the stage, clarify the different approaches and the one that we're doing today. So the first approach, the one I want to use today, is using JSPDF. We're going to generate, starting with a blank document, just create a new PDF and then one line at a time. Say, take this property from the selected row and add the name and then add the address or whatever it is. So that's one approach. The next approach is to use something like HTML to PDF. That's another JS library. And with that, instead of generating a PDF first and manipulating it, you would start out by building an HTML document and style that however you want. And that's nothing to do with PDFs yet. You're just building an HTML page. So you would merge in your data first, creating HTML tags around everything and add your styling. And then when you get that the way you want, then you could use the HTML to PDF library and convert the document from HTML to a PDF and export it at that final step after everything's been created. Both of those generate a PDF from scratch, though. You're starting with nothing, merging in your data and starting with an empty document. So then another approach could be to start with an existing PDF that you want to fill out. And if it's already a PDF file and you need to manipulate it, open it up and make changes, then there's other types of libraries you would use for that. So there's just a ton of different approaches. And to make sure that this is helpful, that it's going to work for your use case, I just wanted to kind of clarify what we're getting into on today's video. So hopefully this approach works for your use case, but if you would rather start with HTML, then I can do a video on that library. If you're interested in the HTML to PDF approach or editing an existing PDF, feel free to drop a comment below on the video or reach out on Discord. Let us know if you'd like to see another video on those other approaches. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into today's video, which is using JSPDF. All right, let's check it out. All right, first I want to walk through this existing PDF generator I built a while ago. This is already on the community portal, and this one's a little advanced, but I want to show what's possible with JSPDF, and we'll kind of show some different features on this finished version here. And then we're going to start from scratch, import the JSPDF library, and build a simple version of this. I'm going to put out the code for both of them, and then at the end, we'll come back and look at this one and see how some of these more advanced things work. So first, just to show what's possible here with this one, I've got it set up to where you can supply a background image and save this configuration that goes with each one. So I can tell it what color to use for this particular document. We'll change the font size a little bit as well. And then if I save this, it'll re-render the document using that setup, and it's saving that configuration for this one document. And each one of these has a different setup. So here, the certificate, it's got a different font color. And you can see a few of the fields, the position is off here. So then on the map side, I can go to the field mapping and adjust the position of these. So if I want to move the employer name here a little bit to the left, I could try to guess the number and reduce the X value here, but I've got this option to show guidelines. So if I turn this on, it'll draw the position of, show this coordinate, and then I can drag it, but it's not actually saving anything yet. It's not going to move the name. It's just updating where the crosshairs are. And when you get that where you want it, then you can save the position and it'll re-render everything with that field wherever you just put it. So We could do the same thing here with the date and move that up. Um, this is showing the field names here, but I've got it set up to where the first row of data is actually just repeating the field name. So it's easy to see what thing you're moving. But then you can select an actual row of data and it'll merge in that person's record. And then the user could download the PDF right here. They could print it, or if you wanted to, you could connect this to an API or database and send the PDF somewhere. So like I said, this one's kind of advanced. There's a lot to the JavaScript, and I don't want to spend the whole time getting into that. It's more about showing the basics of how to get everything working and to take your raw data, connect it to the JSPDF library, and be able to just generate a document. And then I'll share the code for this just so you can see how everything works. So, all right, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and start a new app. I've got an empty app here, nothing in it except for a single query. So I'm using this API, randomuser.me, and I like using this one for certain examples because the data is nested. So we're going to have to use some JavaScript to get down to those particular fields, and that might be the case with your data as well. I want to make sure we cover, how to do it when it's not the easiest, just flat table of data. So I got some nested data here, and I'm going to connect this to the UI. You can either drag in a table widget and connect it, or use this bind data option. This is the easiest way, and you can just select a table, and then it connects it. It adds the table widget to the canvas. It does the connection here for the binding. So the JS binding here is connected to not just the data, but it knows there's a results array inside of that. So little things that it does for you automatically. It also sets the query to run on page load. So if you create a new API, that won't be on at first. It's not on by default. But if you connect a query to a table, you're going to want to see the data. So that bind data button is really helpful just to help you get started. So let's see. We got a table of data here. I'm going to put a PDF viewer next to it and just kind of lay out what we're going for here. So a document viewer, this can display any PDF if we give it the URL, and that can be a data URL too. Right now, it's an actual URL that we could open, and the PDF is hosted somewhere else. But we're going to generate a PDF and then pass it to this viewer as a data URL. So next thing we want to do, we have our data coming in here and a place to view the PDF. So next, I'm going to import the JSPDF library as well as JSON path. So we're going to end up needing that, and I'm just going to do them both now, and then you'll see in a little bit why we want the other one. So both of these libraries are in the suggested libraries or recommended libraries here. Just to back up and show this, the libraries button on the bottom left here, there's 3 libraries included by default, and then a bunch of suggested ones that are just one click to install, or you can paste in your own link here for a CDN to either a ESM library or UDM. So I'm going to install JSPDF, and I think the last one here, JSON path. We're going to end up needing both of these. So it's just one click to install the library, and then you can reference it anywhere in the app, and you'll see the name inside of here. It's usually the same as the label, but you can reference it. It's available as whatever. So let's go back to the editor. And now I'm going to add a new JS object so that we can use the JSPDF library. We'll get rid of this placeholder code here, and we have our first function we'll call build PDF. All right, so the first thing is just to create a new document using that library. There's nothing in it yet, but you're just starting an empty PDF. So we want to give that a name, const PDF equals, and then reference the library. So JSPDF dot, and then there's a function in here, JSPDF. So this will create a new document, and then we can start to manipulate that document and add values to it. So Next, let's pull up the docs and look at the different ways to add text to it. There's tons of different, ways that you can format it, and extra options with each value as you add it. So I'm going back to the library section here, and there's a link to the docs for each one of these. So going to the JSPDF docs, and now you don't need to import the library inside the JS editor. We did that through that menu. So you can skip the first couple lines there. You don't need this import line. I just did this, declared a PDF called, I called mine PDF, but we created a new document. You'll notice that here, it's just new JS PDF. And in Appsmith, with each library being imported separately like this, it's the name of the library and then whatever function. Everything's inside of it. So back to the docs here. The next thing that we can do is add text to it with .text and then put something inside of there. First parameter is the actual text you want to add and then the coordinates. So I'm just going to copy this line and we will add that here for the next line. Now mine is called PDF. So this is going to add a line to it, but we're not returning it, and we're not connected to the document viewer yet. So the next thing is we want to return the PDF that we've just created as a data URL. And that is in here somewhere. Just going to search. Here it is. And it takes a string as a parameter saying what format do you want to output in. There's a bunch of different options here, but I'm going to use this data URL string. You can call it either one. So we're going to use pdf.output or doc.output, whatever you call it. Ours is called PDF, so that should work. pdf.output with data URL. I'm going to copy that with a parameter. Let's return pdf.output and then put that string in there as a parameter. And so now we're getting back a data URL. You can see that it's got the data prefix, the type of file, and then that it's base64 and the string, the blob. So if we go back to the UI here, I can remove this document link and reference that function. And I think we need to actually run the function again now that it's connected to the UI. Okay, we got to start. There's something. The text is up there really high. It's getting kind of hidden by that overlay, the tooltips. So let's run that again. All right, there it is. We have some text showing up on the PDF. So the next step is we want to be able to pass in this data from the selected row. Just go down the list and select one of these. But before I do that, I want to tweak the formatting on this table. The data is nested, and that's going to make it a little more challenging to generate the PDF, but I want to show how that works. So to make the table look better, first, we'll go to the name here. And instead of it showing the entire name object, we'll just do name that first. Okay. And I'm going to hide the location and gender. Let's see, we'll do email. And then for the login here, we can make that show the UUID. All right. And I think that's enough there. We just want a couple columns that we can see. So let's try to make it to where you select a row and it re-renders the PDF using a couple values from that row. So first we have to pass in the selected row as a parameter to that function. We'll go back to the JavaScript here, and I want to update this to say that we're passing in some data, and that will be equal to the selected row from the table. This will be my default. We're passing in whatever row happens to be selected, and it gives you that entire object of that user's record. So now that we have that data being passed in, instead of just adding hello world here, I could say use data dot and then any one of those fields. So we'll do name, and I'm just going to copy this a few times, and then we'll do email. We'll keep the same X value and maybe double this. So we'll see what that looks like every 10. Make this one 30. Oh, I didn't finish. There's email. And let's see, what other field did I get? ID? Yeah. Okay, let's see what this looks like. I'll run it again. Oh, we got our first error. ID, that's right. That's an object. ID.name. Yeah, there's a couple layers nested on that ID. So let's see what this looks like. Cool. Okay, we got 3 different values showing up on the PDF. Um, is it already re-rendering? Yeah. Cool. I thought maybe I'd have to set up a on row selected thing, but because that is a input to the function and we're changing the input and it's all reactive, just by having the parameter change, the table one selected row, that's rerunning the function for us. Depending on how you set this up, you might have to say, like, tell the triggered row to do that. I'm going to change this PDF viewer here just to kind of demonstrate this. The document viewer, currently it's the binding is the function itself. I'm saying call that function. But if I change this to .data, then it's just going to show the data from the last time that function ran. And so now it doesn't care that the input's changing because it's not bound to the function itself. It's just the last time it ran. So let's put that back to the function. And this is probably the way you'll want to do it most times. However, if the function is async, so if you want to connect it to an async function, then you just have to store the value first or use a variable to store it. And then that way you're referencing the Appsmith store or a variable instead of a function that's async. So I'm going to change this function to async just to see how it works. If you have an async function, even though I'm not using it, I'm not saying await this. Nothing in here really needs to be async. I'm going to go back to the UI, and you can see there's already an error around here. It's saying no document, and if we look in here, the error is found an action invocation during evaluation. You cannot use those type of functions in a field that's trying to display the data because the app wants all that stuff available when the page first loads, right? Like you can connect it to a function, but not one that's async. Otherwise, you're just going to have like a broken UI. So the way around that is you make your async function store a value or manipulate a variable, and then you connect it to that. Instead of the function, you would bind it to that variable or the Appsmith store. So let's get rid of that async so we can get it working again. All right, we got some basics working here. I can select a row and the PDF updates and regenerates. So we have a data-driven PDF. And the user can actually download it right there or print straight from the document viewer. So next, I want to add some formatting. Let's go back to the JSPDF docs. And right here, you can see a bunch of different methods for manipulating it. There's set font, and then you pass that a string and tell it the font family. So let's try this one first. The way that you, the syntax for this, you'll want to do this before you add text, where we do pdf.text equals, and then you're telling it what value you want to add. So you want to do this stuff before that. What would be a string we could use? Yeah, so like an example is times or maybe like sans serif. Let's see what works. That's font name. Oh, and then there's probably font family. Font size. Let's see. Let's see if we can just change the font. So right here, before we add these 3 texts, we'll do pdf.set font. And it looked like one of the options was times. Um, I want to see the change. So I'm not going to run it yet. Let's go back to the UI. I think that's doing it anyway. Yeah, it just re-rendered. You can see the font difference. Kind of wanted to watch it change. So you can see that it made a difference there on the font. Now, how do we do the color? Let's draw color. Fill color. Text color. There it is. So it's a string. It looks like you can use a hex value. I think you can use color names too. Yeah. All right. So it's just set text color. Oh, here we go. Back to the JS. And I'm going to use my color picker here to grab the orange. And let's use that value. Oops. Okay. And we should have some orange text now. Cool. So there's a bunch of different methods there. That's the basics is you find what you're trying to edit, whether it's the font or the color or whatever. You can also add some lines. I was using this just for those guidelines, but it's not in the final PDF. So in my code, there's a part that turns on the lines so that you can see it, renders it, but then before it outputs and saves it, it removes them. So like I said, that one gets kind of complex. It covers a bunch of different stuff. So just covering some basics here. We're able to add some text. I know what we can do next. Let's add parts of this that are like hard coded around this to create like an email template or something. So we'll go back to the JS, and instead of just setting the text right here, we could set it all as one big piece of text. Let's see. How about right here? Let's use a template literal. And oops, let's see. You got to wrap this in curly braces and a $sign there. So that should give us the exact same thing. It's just a template literal. And then we can say hello. Put a comma after that. Okay. That should give us a little bit of an intro. Cool. And now we can put, oh, I did that a minute ago. That email is a link. Okay. Let's see. Let's add a body to it. Please verify your email. And then name. Oh, we have name again at the bottom. That's the ID name. We could maybe say for an account. You can tell I didn't think through a good use case here. Just trying to show how the basics work. For account number. And then I'm just going to copy this and do a final line here that is a closing. This one doesn't need to be a template literal. Okay, we should have kind of a intro body. Oh, I didn't change the position on that last one. So we'll make this 40. All right. So that's the basics. That's how you can connect your data, data driven. You select a row and it's merging in those values. We covered how to add some styling and everything. So I think that's as much as I want to walk through as far as live coding today. We're going to look at the first app that I demoed and show how some of that stuff works. There's a bunch of other stuff you could do here, like adding images, tables. You know, we could go on for hours explaining a bunch of stuff, but basically it's figure out what method is going to give you that option that you're looking for, whether it's changing a styling or adding a line or a graphic. There's one for images. Um, so let's go check out the first one that I demoed and see how some of this stuff works. I'm going to walk through the back end, show you, you know, how I'm storing the data to make this, and I think that'll make the front end make more sense. So I've got my table of mock data, and I made the first row of data a copy of the header row, so I can plot those field points and, you know, see what I'm moving around basically. Like right here, if I select the merge data row to be that employee, like the field names, now I know I'm moving the employer name. Like, is it the person's name or the employee, the company, you know? So this makes it easier to adjust the guidelines. So then the field map table here, it's a list of fields from the mock data and the position for each one for a certain PDF. So I've got a set of IDs here for the first PDF and every field that I want to plot. And then I go on to the second PDF and the fields that are on it. And then the last one only has a few. Um, and then the last tab here is the sources. So I just have a couple random background PDFs that I found, and I'm storing those options as a single string of JSON. Because I didn't want to just keep adding a new field every time I wanted to add a new option. So this is my options field, and I pull in that object and parse it. And later I might add more to just one of these, and it doesn't need to be a new column. It doesn't change the data structure of the app. So that's the back end. Let's look at how it merges together. Look at the code. This is just some crazy CSS stuff I did for the container background. Um, yeah, this weird like circuit board thing. It's just some crazy CSS I found to use for the background. So that's nothing to do with how the app works. So that's this tab, this JS file. In this one, let's see, let's break this down. I'm gonna look at some of the more basic stuff first. All right, I got some properties I'm defining here at the top for defaults, and each individual PDF, it also has its values that it's going to use, but up here it's like a default if there's not one. And then I want to look at a couple of these kind of helper functions. So there's this list of colors here, and this just gives me like some values for the dropdown. So the select widget needs an array of objects with a label and a value. And I wanted to be able to feed that with a list so that you can pick a color and then pass that in. So I just got a helper function for that. Uh, font styles. The JSPDF library has a function to return the available font styles for the font that you're using. And so rather than trying to store all that info and you know, maintain lists of that stuff, I'm using the function to generate the list there. So that's the styles, and then same with the font list. Um, so this could be hard coded in the select widget. I mean, I could just do this once, copy and paste it, and then make it hard coded into the select widget, but there's a function for it. So I'm just using that option. Okay, save the PDF. This is just calling another function. So the majority of the code is, let's see, on open, async PDF select. When you select one, it gets the field mapping for that particular background. You know, each one has a different set of positions and set of fields and everything. So it does a different API call, you know, to get those fields from the Google Sheet of the XY plot, and then it remerges it. So then this function to do the merge, it says take that background URL and merge in the data. So each time it's generating a new PDF and passing that URL to the get image API. This part's kind of a trick, you know, it's a good thing to know how to do. Have a single API to get the image and the entire URL is coming from that selected row. So it's a lot of times you're only doing part of the URL as a dynamic piece. It'll be like the endpoint slash ID, and then you're grabbing the ID, but everything else is hard coded. Here, the entire URL is dynamic. So that one API is getting a different image every time, and that becomes the background. And then it finds the image dimensions and uses that to create the document size. And in the UI, on those sliders, I use that to set the min and max. So depending on which one that you select, the sliders will be scaled to that image. So then I just have some ratio stuff here, you know, to align everything and add that background image. Here I am setting all of the options from above at the very top, where you can pass in the parameters you want for the default, and then map over all the fields. So there's the list of fields, and it checks the merge data for that field. If it doesn't find it, then just put not found and the field name. If it's a number, I think I did this because you have to pass it a string when you add text, and so I had to just convert the numbers. And then put it at whatever position. So it's doing a loop, going through all the fields and putting them at that XY point. And then here's my part to handle the guidelines. So if the user wants to see them, it draws that part. And then that's it. Then it's time to output it as a data URL, and that gets displayed here in the document viewer. So like I said, this one's a little more complex. It doesn't need to be this difficult if it's the same template every time or the same config, the same colors, you know. But I just kind of made it to where everything's dynamic so that anybody can copy this and just tweak a couple lines and be able to have that full functionality of storing a different config for each PDF. All right, I think that's it for today's workshop. Like I said, there's other methods, other libraries you could use. Today we started with a completely empty document, created a PDF from scratch, and then manipulated it, adding values to it. Another approach is with HTML. You could create the entire document with HTML first and then export it and create a PDF that way, or manipulate an existing PDF to fill it out. So there's other ways this could be done, and it really depends on your use case. If you're interested in that, please drop a comment below, either on the video or in the community portal. Feel free to reach out on Discord and just let us know what you're interested in, what other topics we should cover. So that's it for this week. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you next week.